Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, June 30th, 2024. Coming to you live from Floored Media here in Rockville Center. Got a magnificent show coming up for you tonight. NHL Free Agent Frenzy, and of course, the NHL Draft that just came and went. Big show. Unfortunately, Russ Cohen will not be joining us tonight. He got held up refueling in Chicago, I believe. You said American Airlines?
But he is. He just said he is watching from the plane. So
there we go.
To Russ,
all right.
We'll get him on at some point later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We appreciate the efforts. Unfortunately, it seems like getting back from Vegas has been a big chore for a lot of people this weekend. Either way, plenty to talk about. We're going to have a great show tonight. With you, as always, is myself, Sean Cuthbert, and of course, Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how are you?
I learned a lot in Vegas.
Yeah, tell me about it.
If you're going to take a red eye...
Did you learn how to sin?
No. If you're going to take a red eye, don't book a middle seat.
Okay.
Terrible idea.
Or ever.
Don't
ever book a middle seat.
At a slot machine. Ever. Yeah. That is a scam. And if people say go play blackjack, it'll be fun. It's not. I'm terrible at gambling. That was bad. But besides that, the Sphere was incredible.
Stefan, you're young yet. You still have time to learn.
I have time to lose all my money.
You could take like some online courses on blackjack, maybe some roulette, although that's pretty much just picking numbers. But
anyway,
you can get better.
I can get better, but the Sphere was amazing. It was.
Dude, I had so much FOMO.
Yeah.
This weekend, I'm kicking myself for not going. Just buying a ticket, going and hanging out. It looked incredible. It looked amazing. The screen was unreal. I heard you hurt your neck though. Looking up.
Yeah, I'm used to hurting my neck from looking behind me in the goal every time the pucks go in, but this one was different. I mean, I don't know if you saw Barry Trotz, what he said. Someone asked about it. He goes, well, I don't have a neck to begin with.
That's amazing.
And looking up, I saw Barry too, and quick hello. He's one of the nicest guys you'll meet. And you hear that a lot in hockey. A lot of these guys are, but him and Luke caught up. But yeah, he said that. I was dying laughing. But it's hard to put into words how cool it is. It feels like it's IMAX, but the graphics team did just a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even on the broadcast, it looked incredible. And every once in a while, they kind of went outside and they showed how it looked like on the Sphere outside. It looked incredible.
We were taking off. They had a Minions character. I forgot what I guess they called them Minions, right? The yellow people.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
They had, as we're taking off, because you can see the whole strip, it was a Minion guy. So that was cool.
Cool.
It is I would never have thought to let's build a technology that's a globe circle type thing. And
sure.
But hey, I heard concepts there.
That's New York's own, the Dolans, MSG came up with that.
And they didn't trade their first round pick, right? So they were good.
Yeah, a lot to talk about as far as that goes. But before we do, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Satisfy your hunger at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. Also proud to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. And also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff Attorneys at Law. Ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And of course, folks, if you're hanging out with us live in the chat and you want to ask us some questions, just say questions brewing in the chat, then ask your question. Then Steph and I will be happy to get to them when we get to questions brewing. So the pleasantries are now out of the way. Let's talk about the Islanders' housekeeping, if you will, before we get to the big stuff, the draft and the free agency. Let's talk about the RFAs. I believe there was an announcement earlier who was qualified. We can talk about that, who's coming back, who might not be, and then we'll go from there.
Kicks things off with an announcement coming tomorrow is that Doug Huda is out as the Islanders' defensive coach, penalty coach. I think we all saw this coming when Benoit was hired.
Absolutely.
Watt brought him on. Not that they're the same coach. I know Benoit's biggest thing is defense off faceoffs. That's one of his biggest things. And I'm actually kind of shocked they are hiring another coach. I guess it can't hurt.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
But John McClain will be back. Benoit will be back. Huda is moving on. Lou pretty much hinted that Huda's going to get another job somewhere else. It was just, the way they want to structure their defense, things like that. Also, look at the defense last year in the PK. I mean, hard to keep your job when those are the numbers you have.
Yeah, he had everything going against him. That, and he didn't have a relationship with Patrick Waugh. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to want to have his own guys in there, even though McClain's sticking around, but he passed. He would have failed.
Yeah. Before we get to the qualifying offers as well, Wallstrom did get qualified, which was not a shock per se, but the key was that Lou said pretty much if there's an opportunity to move him, to give him a new opportunity, they're going to do that, but they will not move him for free. We talked to the deadline show that could Wallstrom be moved then? The Sharks or a team like that. And it's clear that Lou is just not going to dump him. I think the thought is that try to get him back to maybe a 4th or a 5th, 6th round pick if possible. Package him in a deal, things like that. But he said that Wahlstrom's had a good summer. Remember last year too, is he had no summer to train. It was just trying to get back to being able to, walk normally and all that stuff. This is a huge summer for Wahlstrom. And also for him to,
Deja vu.
Yeah. I mean, we say it every year, right? But, so Wahlstrom gets a qualifying offer. Also, too, with qualifying offers, they don't have to accept the qualifying offer today. Mm-hmm. They have to, they have till the 15th to do that. Mm-hmm. But they got one. So he got a qualifying offer. Ishikov got a qualifying offer. Holmstrom got a qualifying offer. Cholowski got a qualifying offer. And Thompson got a qualifying offer. Reese Newkirk was the only one not to. He split time between the ECHL and the AHL. He doesn't get one. Math-wise, again, only the guys that are on the NHL roster will account towards the cap. Their numbers are low hits. Wahlstrom's about a little over 918,000. Ishikov's a little over 813. Holmstrom 874. So it's not major caps. It's the Holmstrom one's actually a little weird because
just because they were tendered those offers doesn't mean they're going to accept them.
Correct. So Holmstrom, I feel like has to. He didn't get an extension in place. Wahlstrom and Ishikov are both arbitration eligible. That
Wahlstrom has no case. So
neither does Ishikov.
Yeah,
I mean, you could say the AHL being an all-star in the AHL twice.
Yeah,
I don't think they have any case. I mean, sure, if they go, the one thing too to keep in mind is that if they file for arbitration, that does open up a second buyout window. So the buyout window closed today. We talked about, could Pajot, could Levy bought out? You do the math. It didn't make a lot of sense because you're doubling the length of the term, the cap hit. Didn't make a lot of sense. But in theory, if they do go to arbitration, maybe Lou says, hey, go to arbitration to open up a second buyout window to maybe, we couldn't move cap. Let's do this. Let's do that. I don't see them using the buyout window at all.
The only person I could see them buying out is Pajot. There's no way they're buying out Lee. And look, we kind of speculate, I think even amongst each other, is there a chance Anders Lee could be dealt, not bought out, but maybe dealt to get rid of his salary? I mean, the guy was there at the draft table. He's not going anywhere.
No. All right, to be fair, when Bo was at the draft table, he was moved at trade deadline in the Horvat deal.
That was months later.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, though.
Months later. I'm talking about I'm not talking about 2 days later. Thanks a lot, Anders.
Like on the draft floor. Can you go stand at that table now?
Right.
No, we didn't see that coming. So, that was with the qualifying offers. Lou also said that extensions are not a top priority. So he was asked, Ethan Sears,
which makes sense,
friend of the show, Ethan Sears, asked about, Nelson, Palmieri, Dobson, Romanov, and Lou said that's not a priority right now. You could read in between the lines or take that at face value that they got to clear cap space and try to make this team better for 2024-25. Those extensions don't matter right now. Or you could look at it and say, you know what? How much better can we get our team? And if they don't sign the extensions by September and they hold out, maybe there's a situation here where, Lou's thinking, maybe we don't extend them. Maybe we do move them. It all depends really what happens this season, but I don't think it's a priority to sign them. We know Dobson's going to get it. We know Romanov's going to get it. And you have to think Brock Nelson's coming back on a team-friendly deal. You got to think Palmieri's probably. That being said, where they are in the standings, come the deadline, things like that, that's when those decisions have to be made, not right now.
Well, one thing I'll say about this draft weekend is that it brought more questions than answers.
Yes.
We thought we were going to...
the prospect pool. They actually, they bolstered it.
Well, but those are also surprise answers.
Because,
how many people expected them to hold on to the first pick, and then after holding on to the first pick, keeping the 2 seconds as well? Who thought that was coming?
When they took the first pick, and I guess we could dive in.
Go ahead.
All right, well, first off, Siplakov, whatever you want to, we're going to call him Maxime, because I just don't like getting people's names wrong. Sure.
Siplikov.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. I asked Lou about him, and he said we didn't sign him to be an AHL player. He's going to get a big chance. Lou said you're going to see him. So I think there should be excitement around the guy. I know the Islanders' history of signing KHL players hasn't panned out. That being said, I did the math and went back to, I think it was 5 guys that they had signed from the KHL, added up all their goal totals from their final seasons in the KHL. That did not equal his 30 goals. So, and this also, when the Islanders signed those guys, it was pretty much the Islanders went out, got that guy. 12 teams wanted, this is a guy
this is a different situation.
That being said, he still has to prove himself. For sure.
And I don't think Lou ever made any proclamations about those guys saying, oh, definitely in the NHL.
Yeah, I don't think Sashnikov, even though we could look back at the Josh Bailey thing where Josh Bailey missed out on his 1,000th game being against the Rangers at home because Sashnikov had to get in the lineup against Tampa Bay Lightning, a game where he had 2 turnovers, one right before the end of the third, turnover, goal. Anyway, let's move on.
Sure.
So the draft, right? So the thought process was, okay, you have assets. These are your best assets. And if you're not moving Brock Nelson, your best assets are your draft capital. In a weak draft, there's still value there. As the clock's ticking, you're thinking, okay, the Islanders are probably going to move this pick. Earlier in the day, the Canadians made a deal with the Kings to move up to 21. And you thought, and we had a conversation, I think we spoke, and I said, that's interesting because if Montreal wanted a guy at a certain spot, they would try to move as far as possible. So we didn't ask Lou about this. Lou would never admit having calls with different teams. No. But I would guarantee the Canadians called Lou and asked for the 20th pick, and he said no. And then in my head, I'm playing all these situations out. I did write about it. That, okay, why is Lou saying no? If that happened, which I do think happened. Why is Lou saying no? Is there a prospect Lou wants at number 20? Or is that pick in place to be used for a deal to see what happens in the draft? So as the draft's going on, I'm thinking, you know what? If the Islanders like somebody at 20, that's a gamble.
Well, here's the question.
Yeah.
Who did the Islanders like at 20? Because
the thing.
Because it wasn't Yzerman.
Well, that's what my mindset was. Maybe they were going to
They didn't know he was going to be there.
Maybe they were going to move it in my head. But when Yzerman came on the board and Lou said this, it was a, oh, wow, he's here. We're taking him. And this is the best pure goal scorer in the draft. There's... people are comparing him to Wahlstrom because of just his offensive production. But that being said, this was a guy that was supposed to go higher that he fell. Islanders took a gamble on him. They need goal scoring. And this kid going to BU, plea for Jay Pandolfo. That's something you heard a lot about this weekend.
Yeah, Lou's big on that, yeah.
Well, one, Lou drafted Jay with the Devils.
Of course.
Jay, he was also a Islander for a little bit.
Sure was.
Lou kept saying, when we talked about Yzerman, said he's going to play for an incredible coach. Like, Lou trusts Pandolfo to develop these guys. We saw later in the draft, they also take a guy that's going to be you. So this was a key thing for Lou is he knows, maybe he probably likes Providence College more because that's where Lou got the start, but he knows the guys he drafted, especially out of the SHL, but guys going to BU, he trusts Pandolfo.
Right.
And this kid Yzerman, if he can develop just respectably playing in other zones besides just scoring goals, he's got a bright future because the Islanders need goal scorers, and this is one of those guys where you hope what Wahlstrom could become, that this guy actually lives up to that potential.
Not only that, but, I mean, you look at that list of the players in the history of that U.S. program. He has the record now for the most goals in that program. And if you look at the names just beneath his, Austin Matthews, Phil Kessel, I mean, these are guys you don't shrug your shoulders at. These are huge names. So if he was able to go through the same development program, score more goals than any of those guys, doesn't mean he's guaranteed to have better careers than those guys.
For sure.
But it certainly gives him a pretty good chance that he's going to score some goals at the NHL level. And you just hope he rounds out his game. And I had said on Twitter, when I started reading about him after he was drafted, because I knew nothing about him before he was, and I was starting to read them, and I was like, this sounds familiar. I was like, this sounds a little bit about, like a guy like Wahlstrom. But again, it doesn't mean that just because a guy is one-dimensional, during their development means that that's how it's going to be when they get to the pros, or that they're even going to take the same trajectory. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just because Wahlstrom couldn't find his way doesn't mean Yzerman is completely of the same mold. You know what I mean? Maybe you get a little, worried because you've seen an experiment like that fail. But this is a guy who I think is touted even higher than when Wahlstrom was, even when he was picked 11th back in his draft. And I think, it's fair to have some high hopes for this kid.
What I will say is, again, the stats are great.
Right.
Clearly he dominates. But what it just tells me is that goal scoring comes naturally, which means that developing now with Jay, he'll be able to, I feel like, to help him. He doesn't have to focus too much on scoring goals because clearly that's something he could do in his sleep. I think you look at Wahlstrom, too, is... Wahlstrom played one semester or maybe 1 year at BC, didn't play a lot. I'm pretty sure it was BC. He also played overseas. You'll forget that too. That's a different development, different game over there. So I think the Islanders clearly picked him for a reason. We do have some audio we want to play on this. So we spoke to Cole Yzerman and we asked him, what about the Islanders? Again, obviously he didn't get to choose the Islanders, but what about the Islanders did you really like? And this is what he had to say about that. We'll go back to the audio, but we'll play it later. But we spoke to Yzerman about that, and then we also followed it up with Lou about why Lou liked him. And again, Lou was just so stunned that he was there. I think a lot of people were. Again, the one-dimensional aspect is something that the Islanders, it could burn them for sure. But I think again, you look how late they picked him. Where if he pans out, that's we talk about steals of drafts. We talked to Aatu Räty being a potential steal of a draft. And in theory, Aatu Räty worked out for the Islanders because they used him in a trade chip. He was a trade piece, got them Bo Horvat. So let's say this guy Cole doesn't develop, but you could use him to get another player. Great, but I think the Islanders are really, really hoping that this guy pans out to be a future goal scorer for this team because I don't remember the last time they've had a legitimate pure goal scorer besides Bossy we go back to. But it's been a long time. Also, this guy mentioned Bossy. When you ask, what he goes, Mike Bossy was the first thing out of his mouth. So... We'll see, but I feel like they had a really good draft from then on, but we talked about it too, going into the second round. Okay, you have 2 second-round picks.
Well, we're good on that quote.
We're good on that quote? Okay, so we're going to play the quote Cole Eiserman talking about the Islanders.
Felt really good. I feel like they really kind of understood me as a player, and I always respect people like that because it takes a different mindset, I think, to kind of understand how I think and how I play the game. So it was very comfortable, and I'm super excited to be with them.
And then we spoke to Lou Lamoriello and said, listen, why Cole? Besides him falling, just what do you like about his game and things like that? So we have this audio as well.
Well, first of all, he's a pure goal scorer. Let's start off with that. As far as seeing the game differently, everybody sees it through their own set of eyes. But what we're most pleased about is he's gone to play for a coach that I know what he can do and how he can develop people. So it was a win-win for us. Us scouts are just delighted with where he's at.
So the fact that Lou was kind of like trying to get his words out. I mean, he was. Right. It was a shocker, and I think you look at Montreal, they're probably pissed. They probably wanted them. They probably wanted him after that. So I think the Islanders nailed it with their first-round pick. Ultimately, like you said, it is all these prospects are question marks. So you said, okay, the Islanders, you know what? They kept the pick. They get a guy in Cole that people are really high on that falls. All right, now it's time to clear cap. Before the draft, I wrote a story about what a hat-trick draft would look like. Using the first to get a bona fide top 6 guy, using the second-round picks to shed cap, and using one of the second-round picks to shed cap, then using the second one to draft an actual player, and then finish the draft out, bolstering their prospect pool.
None of that happened.
Oh, one happened. They bolstered their prospect pool.
Sure.
We didn't expect. So the second round comes along, and they use their pick. They get Jesse Pulkkinen, and this is a major question mark because this is a guy that's in the draft for the second year in a row. He didn't go last year,
right?
And people were questioning his commitment to playing hockey. His English was not great. Talking to him, it was pretty tough to understand him. But there's another sport that he plays. I'm pretty sure it's called paddle. I think it's a kind of tennis, but it's a paddle.
Okay.
That he's really, what is it? Padel.
Padel.
Thanks.
Okay. Sure.
Is it paddle?
Sure.
I don't.
Jay has no idea.
All right. Anyway.
Jay Belsky, everybody.
But apparently, his hockey commitment was questioned, and he broke out this past year. So we asked him, why this year? He's like, training, hard work. The cliches there, but it sounds like he's actually committed, which is great. So. He's a question mark, but the fact that he broke out, he's an overager as well.
Yeah, his stock rose big time this year, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we like that pick there. And then their third-round pick, I really like this guy. This guy is going to be probably people are saying he's the best two-way center in the league. And we talked about it before about how he was pretty honest about his skill sets.
Very straightforward, yes. Very confident in himself, that's for sure.
Yeah, Camille, great guy to talk to as well. And I just think he's a player that's going also to Pandolfo. And he's going to play with them there. Right. And he's played with Cole Eiserman before. And he said, when he plays with Cole, he understands his role, defensive-minded guy, get him the puck, he knows how to score. But then he also said, if I'm in a line where I have to go score goals, I'm going to do that. So he was really smart talking to him. He made me, just the way he talked reminded me of Bo Horvat and potentially sounded like a Peugeot type replacement. I don't know if his ceiling's a top guy. Probably more middle six, third line guy, but as we've seen in the playoffs this year, we see with the Islanders, most systems, third line center shutdown guys that can also produce points and play with everyone. I mean, Peugeot's been a Swiss Army knife for this team.
Right.
How many line mates has he had over the time he's been here?
Quite a few.
Not ideal.
Right.
But when you have a player that really, truly can play with every type of player, why not? So it looked like the 3 picks they took, Eiserman and Camille, and then Pulkkinen, I think they nailed their first 3 picks, and then they kept going.
Yeah, 2 goalies after that. Dmitry Gamzin out of the KHL, 6'3", 174.
Sorokin Jr.
Is that right? Oh, he plays for CSKA, right?
He played for CSKA Moscow, had fantastic numbers, and his goalie coach is the coach that the Islanders hired to now coach in Bridgeport.
Okay.
So
that
connection
works.
there. And then the next goalie they took, I'm blanking on the name right now. But
Marcus Gidloff.
6'6".
212, out of Sweden.
Sweden Junior League, no one really knows much about him, either than he's huge.
Nothing.
But Henrik Tikkanen, also, he's 6'8".
Well, like Lou said in his presser, you can't have enough goalies. So
if one hits or one's used to trade, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then the last pick, this is a kid that's going to Harvard. I just want to make sure I have all the correct numbers here. Xavier Velo. He's not a guy that produces a lot offensively, but very smart hockey player. He's not just going to Harvard, which is, by the way, he's not going this upcoming year. He's going back for one more year, and then he's going. He is a very intelligent person. I was talking with, and I'll have a story on this as well. I was talking with his broadcaster from juniors. And I said, just tell me about him off the ice. He goes, off the ice, he's a hysterical, funny guy. But when we would go on road trips, he's a guy that's already on the bus early reading a book. He's studying. He's doing those things. I asked why. I said, it's a silly question, Xavier, but why Harvard? And he goes, well, first off, for the the scholastic stuff. So this is a guy that's really
decent name to have on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. If he wants a job after hockey, he's got one. But really smart guy. And that, you look at the Islanders and Cal Clutterbuck's another guy. Like, he's the most intelligent guy on the team. And, well, how does that translate to hockey? Understanding systems, things like that. That is huge.
Anticipating play, yeah, for sure.
Everything,
anything.
even just understanding, even talking with players in different languages. It's so it's so important to have those kinds of players on your team. So I think for the Islanders, you look at their draft, and again, major question marks, but for a team that lacked prospects, they bolstered it. Now we'll see. Again, I think my favorite out of the whole thing is Kamil Bednarik. Again, two-way centers that understand at a young age how to play the defensive game. You look at Simon Holmstrom when he was called up. Usually you don't see players, the reason Holmstrom stayed was because he understood the defensive side of the game. That's the harder part to develop. We look at defenders, obviously. Right. It's hard to learn the defensive game. When you have players that are so young that understand that already, that is a sigh of relief for a lot of teams because you're ahead of the curve. Now, again, you have to. You're going to
earn the trust of your coaches a lot more quickly. You're
going to get more time on ice, especially when he goes to college. I mean, you're playing for a big program, and that also players like that allow players like Cole Eiserman to flourish. If Eiserman doesn't have to focus too much on playing defense, it's important. We've seen, and I don't want to nitpick on Wahlstrom here at all, but it's just going to be the thing where Wahlstrom never grasped truly how to play the defensive game, and then when he finally started to play more of a 200-foot game, the offense fell off.
Right.
And that's the concern.
And even in a defensive system for a team, if you have a guy who's going to guarantee you 30 to 40 goals in a season, you're going to let him play his game and be a little more forgiving if he's not back-checking on every play. Now, granted, that's a bonus if they do, and hopefully over the course of their career they come to learn that and they come to add that to their repertoire, right? But if you got a guy who can put up those numbers, you let him flourish a little bit, right? I mean, you look at Barry Trotz and what he did with Alex Ovechkin, right?
Yeah.
And he started out as more of a, I don't want to say one-dimensional guy. He obviously had multiple dimensions, but he enhanced his defensive game when Trotz came over there, right? And that's something you can do with a player like that. So get him in the lineup, get him NHL sized, right? Get him ready to play the game, and throw him on a line with Barzal and Horvat in hopefully 2 to 3 years, and see what kind of sparks fly.
And also too, you just mentioned Barzal and Horvat. I want to mention this. It just came to my mind is when you have players that are so committed to the defensive side of the puck, it's contagious. Bo Horvat comes and allows Barzal to be more higher in the defensive zone to lead to fast breaks. But you know what Barzal also did this year? I think he led the league in takeaways, right? His defensive game this year, he said he had fun playing it. Statistically, it was his best defensive season of the year. Is it because Horvat? Maybe not. But the fact that Horvat, who scores goals, worked so hard, you have to think that Barzal saw that and went, I could be like that. Why can't I be like that? So I think if Cole plays with guys, and as eventually Camille goes with him, they'll be there together. Like, oh, he's working that hard to play defense. You know what? I need to do that too. And maybe you see Cole on his own develop that defensive game. And also too, when you and Barzal's talked about this, when you steal the puck and it translates and you score a goal, that's the best feeling. You
very
made the
rewarding.
Play. I remember we was in Carolina this past year where Barzal scored in overtime. But Dobson makes the strip in the D zone, gets up the ice, sets up the goal.
Right.
That's got to mean so much to Dobson because look at that. I just made a great defensive play and we scored. And Cole Eiserman said, I want to do everything to get ready to be able to help this team win games. And of course, you're at the draft. You're gonna say all the right things. But yeah, I think the Islanders had a really good draft. The problem with the draft is they focused on
that's the thing. I mean, for the system, for what everybody seems to be saying about their draft, you go to the ratings, right? Whether it's at the Athletic or whatever site you want to go to, you're seeing basically B and higher, which is great. I think Rachel Dory gave them an A-. So they're getting high marks across the board, which is great. And they're also, packing the cupboard a little bit because we know it's been bare, which is great for the future. The question is, how does this affect the present? And I want to get into that, but I want to break first. So before we do that, I want to remind you all about our great friends at Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game, and with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we talk more Islanders.
Hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it. I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook, or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. The train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York. Thanks so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and your favorite platforms. So we're going to keep talking Isles here. We talked about the draft. Let's talk about how that affects the summer rolling forward here. You have free agency at noon tomorrow, Monday, July 1st. And I think there was a lot of expectations here for the Islanders for adding to what the team had last year. Obviously, they fell short in 5 games against the Carolina Hurricanes. A bit of a small miracle that they got into the playoffs. Patrick Waugh did a great job of picking this team up from where they were under Lane Lambert and sneaking in. But I think the general consensus here is it wasn't enough, and they kind of need to retool. We know Ilya Sorokin had a down year, but even with him bouncing back, which I expect to happen, don't know if that's going to be enough to have this team go on a run, right? So I think everybody went into this weekend thinking, okay, the Islanders, like you said earlier, they're going to maybe move one of these picks, maybe both second rounders, whatever it was, to free up space. Maybe they attach a player to that, whether that's J.G. Pageau or otherwise. None of that happens. They're still facing the same cap constraints that they were going into the draft. Less than 24 hours to go to free agency. Now, we know that they can go 10% over the cap ceiling.
$8.8 million.
So they technically could sign somebody. They could sign somebody big tomorrow. It could happen money-wise. Yeah. But then that kind of cripples the team in a sense that in order to get out from under that extra salary before the season starts, they're basically going to have to give something away because they're going to have basically no negotiating power. Not that they had a lot going into the draft, but even less because these teams will know, oh, well, you just added so-and-so for $6.5 million or whomever it might be, and we know you got to unload some salary, so what are you giving us, pal? You know what I mean? So they have a bit of a precarious situation. We're already seeing narratives on social media. They're running it back. They're not going to do anything.
Could I pause you for 1 second?
Oh, please, yeah.
First off,
you have a take. You have a take.
Fans are passionate.
They sure are.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anytime they say they're going to run it back, no team every year is the exact same. Even if you have the same rostered players, a year of another player getting experience at the NHL level, like that player should be better. In theory, right?
Sure.
They should take, you just mentioned it, running it back. Sorokin is not going to be as bad as he was this past year. Again, not all his fault. The defense from has to be better.
I think that's a good bet to make.
Okay, so if Sorokin is 10%, 20% better, running it back, they're going to be better. if Sorokin's better? How many games did they lose because of Sorokin? Let's be real. There were a lot of games that, I think through the first 20 or something games, how many times did he allow 4 or 5 plus goals? A locked-in Sorokin is not going to allow that. And the Islanders were also, in those games they lost, it wasn't like they were losing 5-1, 6-1. The Islanders were scoring 3, 4 goals. They were losing by a goal. Not all on Sorokin, but Sorokin's going to be better. This guy, Siplikov, right, could be terrible or he could be really good. That being said that he's coming over and they're pretty much, his agent, Ethan Sears, reported this when he spoke to him through a translator, is that his camp and the Islanders agreed like middle 6 role here. He's not going to be an extra forward unless camp goes terrible for him, which I don't think is going, I don't think this guy, I really don't believe is the same as the past guys.
The issue is selling this fan base on Ilya Sorokin being better than he was last year and a complete unknown coming over from the KHL.
I'm not done.
Oh, great. Continue.
Fourth line, right?
Okay.
You're regrouping the fourth line. Are you allowing younger players to play, or are you going to have a faster fourth line? I think Kyle McLean in a full year, the energy he brings, if Cizikas also stays here, doubling the energy, contagious energy, things like that. Let's say he plays. You look at the second line. Who's going to be that second liner? I don't think it's going to be a prospect that plays. I think they're going to get somebody. I think they have to add at least a body that's going to help. Whether it's a middle 6 guy that they play in the second line or they actually go out and get a guy. I don't think this team, looking at it right now, they're not going to run Cizikas on the top line. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to add somebody. Cap space-wise, you said is an issue. So I want to bring up numbers here. 5.8 before they sent out the tender of the qualifying offers. Again, the players didn't have to agree to that. That's just what it was offered. So I did the math. If those 3 signed to their qualifying offers, Wallstrom 917, 831, Holmstrom 874, 125, Ishikov 813, 750. The Islanders will have $3.19 million in available cap space if those guys sign to that. Now, I know that the Islanders and Mike Riley's camp are discussing an extension. What does that extension look like? Okay, let's say he does
take up most of that 3.1.
Let's say he does a team-friendly deal at $1 million, $1.5 million. Let's say it's $1 million for fun. That's for fun.
Okay.
So the Islanders have $2.19 million in cap space. That's not enough, right? So I do think the Islanders are going to make cap space somehow. I don't want to close the door on Pajot being moved. The buyout window is gone. I don't think that's going to happen. But people are saying, what assets do the Islanders have? There's a couple of assets, and we can talk about it now because you're talking about how they get better. Holmstrom might not. These assets the Islanders have aren't going to get them back first-round picks. That's just not going to happen. But is there value in Samuel Bolduc? If Aho comes back, which his camp, I spoke to them today, they're hoping to be back with the Islanders. If Aho comes back and Riley comes back, is Bolduc part of this team? He's a former second-round pick, big-body defenseman who, when he plays and plays well and potentially has that confidence built up, we saw it in that last game against Pittsburgh, this is a guy that can make those outlet passes, skate the puck up, quarterback a power play unit.
He has the tools. It's just up here right now.
Exactly. Yeah. A team that's looking for a young defenseman to figure it out. He could end up being an NHL player, a everyday NHL player. The problem is it's probably not going to be here. So he's an asset, okay, potentially to move.
Okay.
Cizikas, I wrote about it today, would not be a popular move. The difference between Cizikas and everyone else on the roster in terms of available players potentially, he does not have trade protection. So Pajot is a modified no trade. Anders Lee's got a modified no trade. You have Pelech and Pulak aren't going anywhere. They're strapped in terms of who they can move. Cizikas, well, $2.5 million. What does that do? It adds $2.5 million. That could allow you to sign a forward. We're going to get into in a little bit of forward options. I just think that the Islanders are going to find a way to clear enough cap to add another player, and that other player will help this team be better next year. Plus, Mayfield coming back.
I ultimately think something along those lines is going to happen as well. Yeah. I just don't think that Lou is satisfied with the way the team is built right now.
Correct.
Where he, and I not that he cares, but he also knows that if he steps to the podium, to the microphone in late August and says, this is what we're running with, this is what we're going to camp with, he knows the response that's going to come back from the fan base. Now, he's going to do whatever he wants regardless, but I mean, look, they need to sell tickets. They need to still fill that building, and you're not going to have a lot of enthusiasm out of the fan base if it's more the same from last year, right? Now,
agreed.
So yeah, well, I'm with you that I think these things are something along those lines will probably happen. The reason why we're hearing, they're running it back is because it's kind of not happening in the traditional way, in the sense that usually that housekeeping is taken care of leading up to or at the draft, and it hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah.
So and also the logic is, the window gets a little smaller. Other teams have made moves.
Correct.
They've made their cap clearing moves. Draft picks have been shifted here, there, and everywhere, right? So there's some other teams potentially that are kind of like, okay, we're good, or we don't need to do this anymore. So I just think it becomes a little tougher. So even though I disagree right now with the fans that think they're going to be running it back, I get that's their feeling.
Oh, I get it.
Because nothing has happened when it really, during the time where we all expected it was going to happen. Nobody thought they were making all those picks. You, me, Joe outside.
Them? Maybe them. Who knows? If Lou even, again, I truly believe that once Yzerman fell there, things changed. Now, Lou said to us he was never moving that pick.
Well, here's a note on that. I don't mean to cut you off, but
it's okay.
I don't know if Anders Lee sits down at the table with them if they're not making that first pick. He ends, and I'm getting a little, tinfoil here, but I don't know if they bring him to the draft. Maybe they're going to pick a kid out of the U.S. system, even if it wasn't Cole, right? But I feel like they brought him in to kind of, to me, it kind of told me there was a better chance that they were making a pick than not. This could mean absolutely nothing. It's just an observation.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
I just think with how stunned they were, to me, I feel like things changed when he was there. For sure, they picked him, obviously, but I think maybe they were taking calls on certain people or things like that.
Yeah, that's not to say if the right guy called Lou and said, hey, here's the deal. He was going, well, Anders is here. I can't make the deal anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, he's still going to swing a deal. That was just the optics for me. So maybe there was a little more... it was a little more genuine when Lou did say they weren't planning on dealing the pick. Maybe he was telling the truth in this instance.
I just think on June 30th to be like, they're running it back. Like, we have months for them to figure it out. Do they deserve the right for fans to not? No, of course fans are going to overreact. They want change now. And like you said, you cannot have cap situations right now. We saw it last summer. Like, you can't have your backs against the wall cap-wise now. This is the deadline to use that or at the draft. I just think that they're going to find a way to make this team better because we just saw what this team back-to-back years, needing the last week to make it, that I don't, especially with Wah here as well, having a hand in these things. And I do think Wah had a hand in who they drafted. Wah is going to have a hand in who they pick as the assistant coach tomorrow, and Wah is ultimately going to have a hand in what free agents they go after. It might not be the flashiest free agent. And one thing, I asked Lou, sure, it's a softball question, sue me. I said, I said, how important is it to find that piece for Bro Horvat? And Matt Barzal.
Oh, yes, I heard your voice there.
Lou looked at me and said, you can answer that. But he said also, it doesn't have to be the best player.
Could be a guy in the system.
It's just someone that has to fit. And we agreed with that. Cizikas last year, it made sense. But Cizikas had to go there because you didn't have another option. You rotated how many times? Right. Is it a prospect or is it the last thing the Islanders fans want to hear is they're going to sign a bottom six guy and try to get him to play up there.
Right.
I think they have to go get a bona fide guy because you owe it to Horvat and Barzal. Horvat last year, breakout day, said, it was a revolving door. Not that he said he was annoyed or that he hates Lou. Like, obviously he didn't say that, but he made it clear.
The fact that he brought it up.
He put some pressure on management there, saying, you know what, I signed here long-term, Barzal signed here long-term. No offense. Again, he said no. He didn't say no offense. I don't want to
Sounds like he wants some clarity on that situation.
And any player would want that. And you look at the Stanley Cup winning team. You cannot be a Stanley Cup contender without a bona fide, true, clear number one line. It's impossible. Can you get by sometimes? Sure. Look at McDavid. Look at Gretzky.
McDavid 2021 New York Islanders.
Leo Komarov, right. You had McDavid, 1 year lighting up the lamp with Zach Kassian, right? But you look at the teams that ultimately win the whole thing. And Gretzky's different. Gretzky's not, it's a different situation. Even McDavid, but the Panthers, legitimate top line. The Oilers had a legitimate top line, right? That gets to the final. So the elite teams have those legitimate top lines. Right. Running a third or fourth line guy might not work. But that being said, if Wah says, you know what? This line, we know for a fact this line needs a pure goal scorer. We have Horvat playing well defensively. We have Barzal playing well defensively. This guy might be a middle six guy, but in that situation, he could pot 30 goals. So I think it's going to come down to trusting that while having a hand in this thing and understanding Barzal and Horvat and really understanding their games, that it might not be the flesh name they get, especially with no cap space, but it just might be the right guy. And I think that'll take time because you have to see it in training camp. So maybe it's a shot in the dark. They go for a guy and people are saying, this team's running it back because this guy's a bottom six guy. It's not going to work. He could end up being the guy that was the right guy for them all along. And that's why I say running it back in September when training camp opens up and they didn't get anyone. Sure. Just let free agency open up. Also, Lou said he wasn't going to, like, it's going to take time when he talked about trades and stuff. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It probably won't happen tomorrow.
Well, that's the thing. It more typically happens within this window of 3 to 4 days, right? From the start of the draft until day one of free agency. That's typically when you see all this stuff happen. And when a team does add a player, they usually clear the cap space first. That's how it traditionally happens. So that's the logic coming from fans. Well, they didn't clear the cap space, so how the hell are they signing anybody tomorrow, right? Yeah. So it would be a little backwards if they sign somebody tomorrow and then try to clear the space afterwards. Or could Lou Lamoriello swing a deal at 10 a.m. tomorrow before the deadline opens at noon? Sure, absolutely, he could. But if nothing does happen on the Isles front tomorrow, that belief is just going to increase even larger for fans, where it's like July 1st came and went, and, you know, outside of picking up the, you know, $900,000 bottom six guy, you know, if they don't sign anybody, it's like more of the same. They're just running it back again. And it's hard to argue against that logic until they actually make some sort of move that indicates that he's actually going to add something to the team. For sure. I think one thing to look at with the draft that shocked a lot of people is I've been reporting a lot how Nikolai Ehlers, the Islanders, inquired about him. It makes a lot of sense. He was not moved at the draft. Still available. Well, there was also a nugget that came out that according to Winnipeg, they're trying to keep him. He might not go anywhere. It's possible. And remember, everybody thought that Hellebuck was out of town. Yeah. No, he stuck around. It's possible. So Ehlers might still be a Jet. What I think, and this is just me spitballing, is that the asking price for Ehlers was too high and teams didn't take that bait. They're like, you know what? We don't have to do that. What could also happen is that free agency opens up, a few days go by, and then teams become desperate again, and there's a second trade deadline where, oh my God, we need a guy. Then they could ask for what they want for Ehlers, and teams might say, we struck it on X, Y, and Z. Okay. Again, the Islanders, I think, could still make that deal. I'm not saying that they've still talked about getting him. I just know what I know from the last week or so, that there was still interest up to the day before the draft, or the day of the draft. There was still interest in Ehlers. There was interest in Rutger McGroarty's rights. He also didn't get moved. But again, Chychrun didn't get moved. A lot of guys that everyone said, you know, they're probably getting moved, weren't moved. So is those teams saying, you know what, let's wait till people strike out and then raise the price? Who knows? Also, I mentioned before the arbitration. If players go to arbitration, that second buyout window. So if the Islanders do sign someone and they're over the cap, maybe they then, you know, hey, sir, file for arbitration. We've seen it before. I mean, we've seen it happen. Yeah. And the Islanders, you know, maybe they don't want to buy out. Let's say, I don't think Pedro is getting bought out, but let's say the Islanders do sign a guy and say, you know what? Like, we have to clear cap space. We have the clean, like, now we need another 1.5 or whatever it is. We have to do this. We don't want to do it, but it came to the time where we got the player we wanted on free agency, but we have to be cap compliant. We have to do the buyout window. So, listen, we'll get into names in a little bit. I know you guys will have questions about that as well, but June 30th, let's see what happens. At least let's see what happens tomorrow over the next week, and let's see what happens here, because I do think there's a change in the way Lou's been talking, and just the aura feels a little different with Wah here. All right, so what do you think? One more break? Yeah, let's do it. All right, so folks, I want to thank you once again for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY, hanging out with us here at Hockey Night New York at the Great Florida Media in Rockville Center. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Florida Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. The best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and or listening to Hockey Night in New York, and pleasant surprise, we got Russ Cohen on the line directly from the plane, waiting to take off. Prospect writer of SiriusXM NHL, of EP Ringside, co-host of Off the Post Radio, and author of 10 books, Mr. Russ Cohen. Russ, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, sir?
I've had better days. I'm just with like 200 of my closest friends sitting on the tarmac, but it's okay. Let's talk hockey.
Let's talk hockey, Russ.
Yeah, let's talk hockey. How was the weekend in Vegas? How was the draft? And then we'll jump into how the Islanders did there.
Yeah, that draft was great. I mean, it was a technological marvel. I mean, it was just tremendous. I hope they do the Sphere every year. I'm thinking they may want to do it again the next year. We'll see. They will definitely talk about it. And it was a complete success, like best draft, and I've been to 24 of them, so best one ever.
Yeah, so, okay, I think the first thing, Russ, you want to talk about is Cole Eiserman falling to 20. How shocked were you that he fell in? And can you just tell us a little bit about him outside of that he knows how to put pucks in the back of the net?
Yeah. So I was surprised. I knew he was going to be falling because everybody was nitpicking about how he doesn't play away from the puck and doesn't pass to his teammates. And I've seen him between 6 and 8 times the last couple of years, and I've seen games where he does pass to his teammates. I've seen games where he has great zone entries. He'll go to the net. These aren't the things that he does every minute of every game. And he talked about that. Like, when he's in a big game, when he's in like the U18s or something, his teammates are always going to feed him. And if they're feeding him, he's going to shoot. But he's not going to pass it if he's got an open lane for a shot. So these things will change, I think, in BU, especially with Ben Norrick. He's used to playing with him. And I've seen him play anywhere from third line to first line because they switch him around in the NTDP. His skating's really good. It's not perfect, but it's good. It'll get better. He's physically strong, and he's not Oliver Wahlstrom. That's not a negative. Wahlstrom was good, but he had he had one shot. Eiserman has a lot of different. He shoots from different angles. He works on that. He does more things than Wahlstrom was ever willing to do, sort of, to get that goal.
Yeah, and then I also want to ask you quickly about, and I'll get to Sean here, Jesse Pulkkinen was a guy that, a lot of people questioned his commitment to the sport of hockey. What do you know about him, especially breaking out this year, and what do you think his ceiling is? Yeah,
I didn't hear about the commitment. I didn't. I saw the breakout in the World Juniors. I saw a big 6'7" guy that skates well, who can handle the puck, who has some finesse in his game, and also is nasty. Like, he hit guys in the face. And I just, I watched him and I was like, I think this guy has lower first round talent. So I think the Islanders got a real value pick here because it's good that he's an overager because defensemen sometimes take longer anyhow. He can come over anytime. Like, there's nothing holding him back unless he has a contract, and I doubt he does.
For sure, Russ. And just looking overall at this draft class for the Islanders, I think it was also just surprising in general for everybody around Islander country that they even made all the first 3 picks that they took. But how do you assess this draft for the Isles? How well does this pad their cupboard that has been well known for being bare over recent years?
Yeah, it definitely helps it. You never could fully stock it in one, but
right.
Teams are always looking to get 2 guys in the draft. But if you can get 3, you're cooking the gas, and I think there's a real chance because Ben Norrick, I think, is the second or third best defensive center in that draft, and he can score. Second half of the year, he did do a little more scoring. He's a good skater. He can be physical. He plays really good defense. He's really good in the offensive zone for passing. He's not a big-time scorer. He's probably like a 40-point guy. But his overall contribution, he's the kind of guy you want. I think he's a third-line center. And I think Pulkkinen is probably a number 4 at best.
And they follow up Ignarik with 2 goaltenders here, both over in Europe. How do those guys look? I know that in more recent years, goalies are getting drafted higher, but traditionally you have guys going a little later in the rounds where they can still become NHL ready, join a team, maybe at the very least become a backup. What kind of potential do these 2 guys have?
That I don't have. I don't know. Goalies are voodoo. I've probably tracked 4 or 5 really good ones in this draft. So these guys I don't have anything on because I leave that to the goalie experts.
We are going to start up here in about 5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes.
That'd be a good time.
No, we're not. We have 5
Put
minutes.
your stuff away, get back to your seats, get ready to go. We're going to start up shortly after that. We're going to call and ask.
Yeah, I'm buckled in. I've been buckled in for a while.
And,
I love it. Live in-flight
announcement. Looking for an update on whether
I've never done it before. It's
really right now. We don't have that yet. As we know, we'll hopefully be taxiing and ready to take off.
Yeah, sounds very confident.
Runway Russell.
Go back to a gate.
Runway Russell.
I'll let you know. I know anything else. Thanks.
I may steal that.
So all the live viewers and listeners now have an update on your flight, so everybody knows that you're going to be getting in the air pretty soon. So before
everybody knows, all my friends from Farmingdale and Massapequa know, and that's great.
That's
outstanding. Russ, before you do eventually take off, and hopefully that's very soon, I want to ask you about the last pick, Xavier Velo. Again, he's going back to the USHL, and then he's going to Harvard. Yep. What can you say about this kid? Because a lot of people I've talked to loved this pick.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty talented bottom six kind of guy. I think he can do a little bit of everything. The fact that he is going to Harvard is good. I did see him play early in the year. What do you have, like 22 goals? I think there is a little bit of a goal scorer's touch there, but I think he's pretty good all around. I think this was a good value pick and something that, you take a big swing at.
And Russ, the last one I'll leave you with, we were talking about this before you came on. A little surprising the Islanders make all the picks. They don't shed salary leading into tomorrow. Is that an indication that they're going to be quiet tomorrow, or do you think maybe the Islanders still try to swing some deals in the free agent market?
Nah, I think they're going to be pretty quiet. I would be surprised. I don't think there's that much room for them to do anything big.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, Runway Russ, enjoy your flight.
We just found out the big extent of the delay into Philadelphia until 9 o'clock local.
We're going to let you go, but we really appreciate your time here on the show. Thanks for being a great sport in the plane.
So we just called up.
Get home safe, all right?
Thank you.
Take care, Russ.
Runway Russ. That's legendary.
All credit to Jay for that one. Runway Russell. Not bad.
You said the chat.
Oh, is that right? Well done, Mel. Nice job.
Well,
so
listen, it was quick, but he knows his stuff.
Yes.
And I guess the big takeaway from that is the Islanders had a great draft. And time. Well, the takeaway was that there's a lot of delays happening, and at least they're communicating. That's important.
Jake, on the social clips, I'm going to need you to superimpose a plane during the announcement. We post the clips during the week. But, yeah, great stuff from Russ, short and sweet. But, he gave us a little insight on those picks that they made. And also, he doesn't think the Islanders are making moves tomorrow. So maybe they are running it back, Stefen.
Runway Russ, running it back. Run.
We'll see. We'll see. So why don't we get into what's on tap real quick? We'll do Hero, and then we'll go to Questions, Bruin. That is the wrong song, Jay. That's okay. That's okay. It's usually it. That's all right.
And now, it's time for What's on Tap, a look ahead at the Islanders' upcoming schedule.
That's right, folks. It's time for What's on Tap, a look ahead for the New York Islanders. Obviously, no games coming up, but free agency is tomorrow at noon. We got Russ's take on what might happen tomorrow. Stefen, we talked a little bit about it. Maybe we can just key in and real quick. I know you have maybe a reduced list of guys that the Islanders might look at. You can talk about that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about cheap free agency. Again, for all of these guys, they have to clear some kind of cap space.
Right.
Like Anthony Duclair. I've been on Anthony Duclair since the deadline.
Yeah.
He has had some off-ice issues in terms of just being able to be coached. That's something that people have talked about before.
Okay.
I think it's different. He spoke very glowingly about Patrick Waugh when he was asked in San Jose about the Waugh hiring. And he's a guy that brings speed, is not going to cost too much. And I do think he's a good player to play alongside at Nelson and Palmieri. Jeff Skinner just got bought out. Again, if he's going to take a 1-year prove it or a low league, not league minimum, he's not going to do that, but a cheaper deal, then I think you go for it. This is a guy, he doesn't have to do it all. Whatever line these guys are going on, it's your job is to score goals, get it on the forward check, make some plays, right? You're not getting someone that's going to be the line guy that's transitioning all the time. But I think Jeff Skinner has more left in the tank. Stamkos, where we know that his cap hit is going to be between $3, $4, and $5 million, right? He denied 3. He wanted 4 to 5 or 5 to 6.
Okay.
That's not a lot. Again, he's older too, which fits the MO. But realistically speaking,
put up 80 points last year.
He helps the power play.
Sure does.
He immediately goes in that top line left wing role. If a center gets hurt, he's played center. Will he go there? I know there's talks about Detroit, Nashville, Carolina. The Islanders
Detroit makes a lot of sense with Yzerman being there.
If he wants to raise his family in Detroit, who knows?
Okay.
But because his cap hit seems to be lower than a star in this league is going to be, he's an option until he gets signed. Jake DeBrusk. I know Calgary Flames are really pushing for him. This is a guy I feel like that has been on the radar for a lot of teams, waiting for him to be more of a consistent player.
Right.
But I think a guy, again, that could be on that second line. And then I bring this up. Anthony Beauvillier, someone we've talked about. To me, it would not be for a top line. This would be if you want to move someone, for example, let's say you don't want Pierre Engvall. Let's say you want to put Pierre Engvall back on the second line. And say, you know what? Under Waugh get the most out of him. When he's playing well, he really does help that second line. You bring Beauvillier back to be a fourth line wing at a 1-year league minimum. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would
almost love for Anthony Beauvillier to be the one and only signing that the Islanders make tomorrow, because I would just love to see the reaction on social media.
Again, we've talked about it before. I think keep your clients happy. We know how close he is with Barzal. 1-year league minimum deal, prove it kind of thing, where maybe he doesn't even make the team out of camp. Maybe a PTO, right? I think he'll get a contract somewhere. But these are cheap options given the Islanders cap it. Those are and Brandstrom. Brandstrom didn't get qualified, I think, as a depth defenseman. Like I said, Riley, there's extension talks. Aho wants to be back. You have Bolduc. So there is a crowd. But if Bolduc does get moved and they don't bring Aho back, Brandstrom could be a solid pick. Clutterbuck's not back. Clutterbuck's the one that hurt Brandstrom in that game. Needed the stretcher. Brandstrom's also the one that hurt Mayfield a couple years ago, that had him miss the rest of the season. Remember when he didn't come back after the deadline? It was Brandstrom's shot that hit Mayfield. Just connections there. I'm not saying that impacts anything that happens.
No, it doesn't.
But he wasn't qualified. Jake Bean is another one that wasn't qualified, a defenseman in Columbus. So there are cheaper options here. I don't know how much they move the needle.
Right.
I do think Duclair, Skinner, and Stamkos are probably your three where feasible. Try to do it.
Okay.
There's a bidding war for Stamkos. I think Duclair is definitely an option. I think Skinner is definitely an option.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to gauge because they don't have the cap space we thought they were going to have going into tomorrow. So, I mean, maybe Russ is right and they're quiet. I would be surprised. I don't know how the Islanders sell the fan base on that and say, all right, come in for season tickets. You know what I mean? I just think that's a tough sell, but we'll see what happens at noon tomorrow. So that was what's on tap. And now we'll get into the hero of the week. You can do it, Jay. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the hero of the week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Half price hero, which this week is the Selly, featuring grilled roast beef, sauteed onion, mushrooms, fresh mozzarella on a toasted garlic hero. Stop on in to Blue Line Deli and Bagels this week. Mention Hockey Night in New York and get half off the Selly. So, Stefen, I believe we have a unanimous.
I'm going to add one quick after you, but you can kick it off. It is unanimous for sure. So
okay, fair
take it
enough.
away, Sean Cuthbert.
So, the Islanders haven't done much lately other than celebrate a wedding, I believe, over in Europe. Ryan Pulock getting married.
Congratulations to the Pulocks.
But one guy who didn't attend the wedding was Anders Lee. Shame he wasn't invited.
But he had a good reason.
Decent reason, yeah. Winner of the King Clancy Memorial Trophy for leadership qualities on and off the ice. And, of course, humanitarian efforts. He does a great job with the Can Jam Cancer Jam. So, Anders Lee, Captain of the New York Islanders, your hero of the week for winning the King Clancy Memorial Trophy.
I will also shout out the Islanders organization in terms of their media team. There's an app now, the Islanders and UBS app came together.
Yeah.
And they have added some really cool features. First off, it's a very clean look, which I like. Just it's easy, but as I was driving when I was in the rink, when the Islanders made their picks and they updated it, it actually popped up as a push notification. Get to know like the player it was, and you click on it and learn about it. And it's just a very cool thing. During the season, they have trivia, things like that. Tickets, score updates will pop up on your phone like that. Highlights, things like that. So I know, shout out to Corey Wright, who's really been involved with this, how hard they've been working to get this done. And now that it's here, it's his baby there. No, but they did a really good job.
It looks nice. So
if you don't have it, Islander fans, I would definitely download it because it's pretty sick.
So your heroes of the week, Anders Lee, and an app.
Technology.
There you go.
And shout out to the Pulocks. Congratulations on the wedding.
So, Stefen, why don't you tell us about our friends over at Isles Fix?
Yeah, Islanders Country. Get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com.
There you go. And now we're going to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake.
Look down. You know what? I think there was a graphic going while that happened, so you're good.
We're going to hope so.
All right, folks. Welcome to the Snake Den. Jake the Snake. How's your summer been, man? How you doing?
It's Going pretty good. You know, it's flying by, though. We talked about that before. It tends
June's
to happen.
gone, dude.
Tends to happen every year, you know?
Unbelievable. The draft happened and July's tomorrow.
It's crazy.
Crazy. Well, Jake, happy to have you back here in the Snake Den.
Yes.
What's your take this time around?
Yeah, so actually a free agent that Stefen just mentioned, Jeff Skinner. I think that he'd be a great fit for the Islanders. Just got bought out by the Buffalo Sabres.
Yes.
He reminds me of Matt Duchene last year getting bought out.
Okay.
And he was on a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Stars, a prove-it deal, and he put together a 25-goal season, 65-point season, and a prove-it year. Skinner reminds me a lot of Duchene. I think that this would work out for them. He's a proven top 6 forward. I think that he could bring some scoring to that top line, too. He scored 24 goals last year and recorded 26 assists, and he's a year removed from a 35-goal, 82-point season. Obviously, this is offensive production that the Islanders could definitely benefit from.
Jake, it's funny you bring up Jeff Skinner because I actually wrote a little piece about him last week. First time, long time putting pen to paper. But, yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's now that we have a clearer picture of what the Islanders may or may not do tomorrow as far as money goes. I almost think chances are a little bit higher that Jeff Skinner could be on their radar because we know that they're probably not throwing $5 to $6 million at anybody, right? Unless they make some significant changes that we're not expecting at this point. So, you know, with the buyout money he's going to get, he's not going to demand as much because he's kind of got a little padding there already. You talked about his stats, and if you look at his overall career, every now and then he has that down year, and he's done a good job of bouncing back after that. Maybe a change of scenery, playing for a while in the Islanders. Maybe that's something he could do if he's even interested. But you got to figure it's got to be a little enticing for a guy like him to potentially play next to Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat, assuming that he's a guy that the Islanders have their eye on. Now, who knows? He's not known for his defensive game whatsoever.
That's okay.
Which is okay. We said that earlier about Yzerman. This is true.
Put the puck in the net.
Yes, exactly. And we know how poor the power play ended towards the latter part of the year last season. So he's a trigger man that could work there. So again, you know, even I expressed this in the piece that I wrote up on HockeyNightNY.com, just saying that, you know, he may not be your biggest defensive guy. He may not be your first choice when you look down the list of potential available players, but you can do a lot worse than Jeff Skinner. And he's a guy who fills a very specific need for the Islanders as a guy who can put the puck in the net.
And I think you wrote about it on your piece as well, is he has the skating ability to keep up with them. Again, that's another thing too, is you don't just, for sure, let's say he's not great defensively. We talked about it, how Horvat's great defensively, Barzal, you don't need a guy. That being said, the reason Zekas landed there is because he could keep up with them. Anders Lee, I think he's right where he should be on that third line. That fits his game.
Yep.
Couldn't skate with them and keep up with them. You need a guy that can do that. And again, he's fast in transition. You want your top line to be dangerous and have the other team really having to focus on everyone. You know, for a lot of the Islanders with Horvat and Barzal, especially when it was just Barzal, it was easy not easy in a sense where they just had to watch one guy.
Right.
You know, the game changer. Now, if you add a guy like Skinner, who, sure, maybe he's not the Skinner that he once was, you know, with Carolina, things like that. But, all right, they pay attention to Horvat and Barzal, and now Skinner gets more of an opportunity. And then when Skinner starts to get hot, now they pay attention to him. Now Barzal gets more opportunities. It makes it so much harder to defend when you have three guys that are dangerous. And I do think Skinner has stuff left in the tank. I don't think this is a guy. I think Buffalo has been mentally. I think Buffalo is tough for a lot of players. You saw Kyle Poso go there, and he was a leader, and he was great, but not making the playoffs in 8 years. Jeff Skinner has never played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's never played in the playoffs.
Right.
He's played over 1,000 games.
Played over 1,000 games, never been in the playoffs, and maybe he wants to go and sign, and it won't. Maybe it's not the Islanders where he wants to go and sign with a team that will make the playoffs.
Yeah,
a team that's sure.
He's going to have options. He's definitely going to have options.
Of course, but this is a guy that's got to be really hungry.
Yeah.
To play with stars, and again, he wasn't playing with stars in Buffalo either. Tage Thompson.
Given the cap situation the Islanders are in, they can do a lot worse than Jeff Skinner. Can they do better? For sure. But they can do worse. And also, you know, you mentioned Brandstrom before. That's another piece that you put up over at the website on Hockey Nights. If you want to learn a little more about him, check out HockeyNightNY.com. And Jake, great take, buddy. We'll see what happens with Jeff Skinner.
Thank you. Maybe he'll be an Islander. Maybe he'll get to the playoffs with the Islanders. He'll make
me look really smart if he signs with the Islanders.
I'm really hoping for that for you.
So with that out of the way, let's go to Questions Brewing.
Time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
Some questions.
That's right, folks. It's time for Questions Brewing, where we take questions from you, the audience, live here in the show. But before we do that, we want to send a little toast out to longtime listener Tristan Peck over in the UK. This guy has been a follower of the show since Tony Stabile sat across from me, co-hosting the show. A very long time listener and friend of the show. He was kind enough to send us a 12-pack.
Yeah, what
a Blue Point here. Amazing. So. Cheers. We're going to cheers here. We're going to take a little sip. Tristan, tremendous stuff. Much appreciated. Cheers to you. Hope you're having a good time there in the summer over in the UK. It's not raining too much, all right, buddy? When you hear this tomorrow, 6 hours from now, whatever it is. But thanks a lot, pal. We appreciate it. So with that, Jay, why don't you fire off that first question?
All right, let's go. I have from DTMR, any summer travel plans for the squad here?
Oh, okay. We're getting personal here.
I'm starting personal.
All right, fair enough. I'll start. None currently. Just actually a couple weeks ago. This is going to blow your mind here. I went to Cleveland.
Oh, jeez.
Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And you might say to yourself, why the fuck did they go? Why did he go there? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Checked out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay. Yeah, been wanting to check that out for a while. And it was excellent. It was great. I recommend it if you're a music fan. Cleveland was fine. Cleveland was nice. I actually got to catch up with an old friend. You know what? I'll shout him out here. Curtis. Great to see you, buddy. He used to manage a bar called Third and Long. So if you've been following the show for a while,
big football guy?
Actually going even back before Hockey Night in New York, but when Hockey This Week used to do live shows with my brother and Mikey Carver and Tony Stabile, we used to do a lot of live shows in Manhattan. And we did shows at Third and Long, and Curtis was the manager there. Just an outstanding guy, big hockey fan, big Canadians fan.
I'm assuming he's a big football fan, Third and Long?
Well, he didn't. He was the manager. The owners were big football guys, and they named. Sense. In fact, their last name was Long, so they called it Third and Long. Yeah. So anyway, got to see my buddy Curtis over in Cleveland. Had a great time. No current plans for the rest of the summer. I'll let you guys take it away here.
Yeah, I'm trying to book a trip to Aruba or some tropical area with the girlfriend with Alyssa. Just get a break.
A lot like Cleveland.
A lot like Cleveland, except not. Yeah, so hoping to do that and get away a little bit. Disconnect, something I have a very hard time doing. And I think it'd be good for me. I also need to get 10.
You're always on the keys, man.
Yeah, I need to get 10. I thought I was walking around in Vegas in 110 degrees.
Well, you look tan next to me. You can't get much paler than I do.
Yeah, I think the sun actually helps my skin, too.
They say it does. It's got a lot of vitamins in there. Vitamin E, I believe.
Yeah. Jake?
He didn't even have the mic ready. He wasn't even expecting to answer the question.
I'm going to Maryland, down to like Kent Island area, celebrating.
Not Cleveland?
Yeah, not Cleveland. Celebrating my grandfather's 75th birthday.
Happy birthday to Snake.
Yes. Happy birthday.
Happy
Grandpa
early
Snake.
birthday.
Grandpa
Snake.
Grandpa Snake.
Well, Jay, let's get you involved. And hey, we miss Eddie today. He's not here. He couldn't make it. I believe he's having some fun over in Montauk. So we gave him
vacation.
We gave him the show. Yeah, there you go. To answer the question, Eddie's in Montauk right now. So Jay, how you been? Any big plans this summer, pal?
I will be here working.
Good for you.
That's it.
Good old Florida media.
Easy breezy.
What a buzzkill. Questions?
Yeah, I think he's lying.
I'm sorry. Well, let's go. State of Survival from YouTube asks, what was your reaction like when Vegas chose Connolly and the Isles were up next? What ran through your mind?
Oh, Yzerman's still available, and I think I tweeted out saying Yzerman's still available, and they took me. I think Connolly was another guy. I don't know too much about it, but he has had some off ice issues there. I think Islanders were going to avoid that.
Yeah, I don't think they were going to go near him.
I think, like I said before, things change. I was shocked that Yzerman was still there, and I thought, okay, if Yzerman is still there after the Vegas picks, whether their plans were to trade or not or draft somebody else, you got to take it. So I think a lot of fans, especially on the draft where everyone said, oh, wow, Yzerman's about to go now. And if I know for 80% sure that if Yzerman didn't get picked by the Islanders, likely the Canadians or whatever team was up next was going to take him. So I think the Islanders fans and the Islanders were... When Lou is stunned talking, that doesn't happen often.
Right. He's usually pretty together.
So he was stunned. So I think that was my mindset saying, wow, this guy, the best pure goal scorer in the draft, best scorer ever for his league. Wow. Here we go.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of players like that in the Islanders organization, so hopefully it pans out.
All right. We got Mike asking... Any, is it Maggio?
Maggio.
Any Maggio update, and do you think he has a good shot to make the big squad this year, or is he still a year or two away?
Ultimately, depends what the Islanders do this summer and who slid. I think he's going to be a bottom six guy if he makes in this league. That being said, I think you look back at last year, and I watched a bunch of the games last year, and I think this was a guy that really came on in the second half of the year. first year in Bridgeport, first year playing pro. It takes some time, but the energy, Cizikas-esque energy, just this is a guy that he's going out there, he's going to put his head down, go to work, but also he's got some creativity to him. He likes to cut to the slot and create space, and he's got a wicked shot. So I think this is a guy that was a late-round draft pick, has a lot to prove, but I think that warrior mentality is something that you can't teach. And I think there's certain areas of games that you can teach. He knows how to score, but that work ethic is always a value to some team. Mm-hmm. Now, size-wise, can he keep up with NHL guys? Still has to prove that, but when a rookie camp rolls around and training camp, that's another thing too. The Islanders don't hold development camps after the draft. It'll be a week before training camp. So if anyone's thinking next week they'll have all the prospect down, it's not going to happen. Also, the guys that are going to BU, last year when they drafted Danny Nelson, those guys didn't go to rookie camp because they had to go to school already. So I'm thinking that you're not going to see Yzerman at this development camp.
Okay.
So don't get your hopes up that you're going to see him because I don't think it's going to happen. But I do think Maggio has a lot to prove because this is the first rookie camp where Wa's me watching these guys in training camp. But when I spoke, and I were trying to get out of here, but when I spoke to Pajot and Lee, who had played with Maggio at last year's camp, they said they were shocked how easy he was to play with, how easy he made their lives. And if you're an NHL player saying this about a young guy who's never played pro before, that's got to be great for your mental psyche.
Yeah.
So I think for sure, I don't think Maggio will make the team out of camp.
Right.
But could this be the year where if someone gets hurt, he's a McLean type of call-up? I think so.
Okay. Jay.
All right, we got T. Boyle.
T. Boyle.
With Lou putting the Islanders in cap jail, do you see the Islanders doing nothing this summer?
Well, as we discussed earlier, the chances are increased.
I just don't think it's nothing.
But Stefen and I seem to be in unison here, thinking that something will still happen. But as you call it, cap jail, it's kind of where they are right now, and you have to figure chances have the percentage has gone down as far as,
but there's still a chance.
There's still a chance that that they might do something. But it would just be look, I'm surprised that the picks were made, and I would be even more surprised if they don't find a way to do something to add to this roster, because Lou kind of already acknowledged himself that this team needs to improve to go further, in the playoffs and whatnot. So I think something happens, but there's no denying that right now it looks like it's going to be tough.
All right. We have from the Aussie Man. Are the Islanders doing development camp? He says he knows that they haven't done it in the past few years, but maybe it might be more important.
So I think they should do it. They don't call it development camp or rookie camp. They just have the rookies and the draft prospects come down a week before training camp. One of a date, I think it's the second week of September last year. I do think the Islanders should hold one and have it open to fans. I think if a week after the draft they have these guys, because all the Islanders practices are closed, let fans, pay $25, whatever it is, come check out these prospects. But the Islanders had a way about doing things. It's not going to change. So there won't be a development camp, but the prospects will be there a week before training camp. Some of them or most of them will stay and join training camp, and then after a day or two, you start seeing people go home. So no, there won't be anything going on until September for those guys.
All right. Aisle 72 asks, is Ishtakov on the roster come opening night?
I mean, barring any surprising additions, I think he could end up being an extra forward like he was to end the season. I mean, he's a kid that you got to root for, right? Especially if they don't do much the rest of the summer. He's a kid you got to hope that can, find his game at the NHL level and maybe add a little offense, because we know that's something that they need, and that's certainly what he brings to the ice, and he has in the AHL. So I think that, I don't think he makes a starting spot, at a camp for sure, but I think he's got a shot at being that, 13th or 14th forward.
What I will say is he played in the playoffs.
Has to be.
He played in the playoffs one game.
Yeah.
He got in over Holmstrom in that one game, and he's ahead of Wallstrom on the depth charts, clearly.
Right.
So you have to think if Wallstrom's on the roster, so is Ishakov. So I do think he'll be there, like you said, barring any crazy changes.
Yeah.
That being said, when they discussed the qualifying offer, there was always rumors going back to the KHL wanting a spot. We'll see what happens. But I think he'll be there. I think if he goes back down to Bridgeport, his camp's going to have a hard issue with that. Back-to-back years being an AHL
Isn't
All-Star.
he, forgive me for forgetting, but isn't he already in position where if he gets sent down, he has to go through waivers, or is he still waiver protected?
Pretty sure he's still waiver protected.
Is he? Oh, well, in that case...
You could be right.
We'll have to check that out, or maybe somebody
out.
can update us in the chat. But I thought maybe he's at the point where he has to stay up at the big club, otherwise
he's waiver exempt.
He is
waiver exempt.
Okay, so he could end up back in the Bridge. He probably won't be happy about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What more do you want? I don't think Bridgeport's effective for him, because what more do you want? Back-to-back AHL, led the team in goals and assists and points last year. I just think it's NHL time, or he wants to look somewhere else
Change
to get
the
an
scenery.
opportunity.
Sure.
All right. We have from YouTube, Wicked 50 Cal wants to know, what would, I hate killing these names, what would...
It's fun. I enjoy it.
McGroarty?
Oh, McGroarty, yeah.
Okay, McGroarty.
You're close, yeah.
Yeah, what would he cost just by himself?
So it's not even his cost; it's the rights. So it's a gamble. Lou doesn't make deals. Look at Horvat, look at Engvall, look at these guys. He never makes a trade. He knows if they're signing with him.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, by himself, you would think Winnipeg's asking for a first or a couple of seconds because they took him first in the first rounds. They want to recoup that. But the leverage, if he's saying, I'm not going to play for you, they don't have leverage.
Correct.
So I think
the only way they have leverage is if there's a lot of guys bidding on him.
That being said, I do think McGroarty playing here, getting Yzerman maybe stops him from going and using the assets to get a guy like McGroarty, because they have a guy they just got that can produce points. But the fact that if he truly says, I want an NHL roster spot, or I'm going back to college and demanding, Lou is not going to tolerate an attitude like that. One, Lou doesn't rush prospects to begin with.
Right.
And you got to earn it. Now, I think a lot of...
Unless he just believes that he's ready.
Or this is what his camp's telling him to say to get out of Winnipeg. Let's say he gets dealt to the Islanders and then goes, I'm good, I'll go to AHL.
Okay.
Like, maybe he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg. But I would have reservations on Lou being
cold up there,
so interested in him. Just attitude. We know how Lou operates. That doesn't fly. But I do think that a lot of it has to do with just trying to get out of Winnipeg. And maybe things change depending on what team you go to. But I think Winnipeg's probably asking for a first-round pick or a couple of seconds. It's also a possibility that he truly is traded in a package. Again, it's the rights. It's not him.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Jason?
All right, let's see. What's a good nice? Well, here's an easy one. Dale wants to know, when will the 24-25 schedule be released?
Oh, perfect. It's coming out Tuesday.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Easy breezy.
Easy breezy. Let's see. Alex Louis, what do you think about Lou being more transparent and open with the media than before?
We talked about it before. I think Wah has had that impact on Lou. I'm not saying that Wah is saying you have to be more outgoing, but I think like we said at the draft, the way he's talking, he didn't have to say anything about the extensions. Usually we asked him about Martin Clutterbuck. Sure, he pretty much said nothing by saying he spoke. We exchanged words one way and words went the other way. He essentially said they had a conversation, but he doesn't have to say these things. And I just think there's a different aura. Maybe it's because it took back-to-back years of waiting until the last week of the season where he knows he can't lie about anything. Fans aren't dumb. Most fans aren't dumb. There's some that are. Just percent chance-wise, there's some dumb people in this world.
I get it.
Not going to add
general population, sure.
Yeah.
Here's a percentage.
But I do think Lee has been transparent. Like, there's 4 of us in the room. One of us is dumber than all of us. Hold
on. I wish everybody could see Jay. Jay immediately points at Jake. Immediately points at Jake.
I was going to say Ed, but...
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Return.
Anyway.
Poor Jake.
I just think Lou...
Poor Jake.
I've also never had an issue, especially with us. Anytime we've ever asked to talk to Lou, he spoke. Whether he says something or not, he's always... People give Lou,
I think he's a little more open than people expect. I feel like every year he has a line that you're like, wasn't sure he was going to say that, but he said it.
Yeah, so I think he's been open with us. I think leading up to the draft, talking at breakup day about how he didn't think the core... when we asked him, honestly, do you think this core is good enough? He said, I can't answer that, which was no. Or there's reservations.
Right.
4 or 5 years ago, again, we weren't asking that question when they were going back to back.
We believe in this team. We think we have what we need here.
There's a clear mindset change where he looking at the roster, he's like, you know what? I can't say we are. So I think that's the biggest difference is he was honest. He was brutally honest. And that's something that Islander fans should be happy about. Not they want to see change, but be happy about that.
So one more, Jay?
Should we share SAT scores? No, I'm kidding.
I got one more. I think that's all we got.
Excellent. Perfect.
And it's from aisle 72, directed to Stefen.
Oh, God.
Do you ever hear trade rumors when you're around all those beat writers?
Yeah.
Okay, that was easy.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating in Questions Brewing. Jay, gee, that was cruel, man. Just pointing the finger right at him. He didn't hesitate. Jay is cruel. Anyway.
I think snakes are smart, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That one is.
I failed science. I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't
Maybe.
go to the zoo.
Yeah, they slither pretty good. I don't know. All right, so that's going to do it for Questions Brewing, and that is going to do it for the show. So Jay, if you can find the button, hit that outro music, all right? Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, want to thank you for tuning in here at Hockey Night New York and twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY at your favorite podcast providers here at the wonderful, beautiful Floored Media here in Rockville Center. I want to send a big thanks out to Russ Cohen calling in.
Runway Russ
from the plane. Great stuff from him, and great to be back in the studio here. We had like a month and a half off. Had to clearly shake off some rust, but we had a lot of fun here tonight. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and of course, thank you to our wonderful, wonderful sponsors, starting with Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu or order online at BlueLineDeli.com. Also, a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at MainSTBoardGameCafe.com. And last, but certainly not least, a big thanks to Razor and Kniff attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. And folks, if you dig what we're doing here, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. And hey, if you don't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. That's where you're going to find all our shows 24/7, 365. After these live shows are done, we post the archive there. You can watch anytime, any day, and enjoy the soothing sounds of Stefen and I and Jake the Snake here at Hockey Night New York, talking about your beloved New York Islanders. And folks, we're going to be back next week in hopes that there is some Islanders news following tomorrow.
Can you say who our guest is?
We're going to say who our guest is. Got a big guest coming up next week. Mr. Neil Smith will be joining us next Sunday to talk about his time with the New York Islanders, what the Islanders did and didn't do at the draft, and I suppose did or didn't do at free agency. So we're excited about that. That will be normal time, 8 o'clock. Neil Smith joining us. That's going to be a lot of fun. So for Stefen Rosner, for Jake the Snake Rodanis, for Jay Belsky, and for myself, Sean Cuthbert, we've been Hockey Night New York. Have yourselves a great rest of your night.